I'd like to call the meeting of the Oconee County Planning Commission to order. Today is Monday, April 1st. And the first order of business is the invocation.
Folks, pray with me if you will. Heavenly Father, we ask that you please watch over this committee and the planning staff and guide us to wise and safety-conscious decisions in support of the public. And we also ask that you watch over the county law enforcement, first responders, and other county workers and staff as they perform their duties, that they may return home safely to their families after every shift. And we ask that you please watch over the county and state leaders as they work to make the county and state a better place to live each day. In his name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Do I hear a motion to approve the minutes from last week? Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion about last week's minutes? All those in favor then of approving those, say aye. Gary? Gary?
Aye.
Okay. All right. I'd like to welcome everyone here this evening. We've got a few different things on the agenda, a little bit, changing it up just a little bit this week. We're going to have comments for non-agenda items. We've got a 4-minute time limit on that. When there's a minute remaining, I'll do this, and when time's up, I'll do this. And hopefully we can get through the list, not nearly as long as what it was the last couple of weeks. But let's get started with that. First up is Gary Owens.
Good evening, all. My name is Gary Owens. I live in Salem. I'm the president of the Advocates for Quality Development. We are an all-volunteer, not-for-profit that represents roughly 5,000 residents in Oconee and in Pickens counties. In the March 4th Planning Commission meeting and in the March 18th Planning Commission meeting, as you noted, there were many people who were in attendance and addressed the commission. Many of those, in addition to opposing the Kiwi River project, spoke about the need for completely updating and revising the development standards in Oconee County. AQD is still strongly recommending that you hire a planning consultant to work for Director Coley to draft such an update and revision to our development standards. We realize that this work needs to be done by professionals. Our current development standards are old and outdated, especially compared to Pickens County. In the March 18th meeting, at the conclusion of the meeting, you all requested a listing of all the issues addressed by the public during the development standards agenda items in both of those two meetings I referenced. If I understood the final motion made that evening, that being on the 18th, after Director Coley gives you that list of issues, you're going to prioritize them for consideration and for action. Mr. Chairman, we were surprised and disappointed a bit that development standards and a review and discussion of that priority list were not on tonight's agenda. If you could please advise us why it's not on the agenda this evening, and if you could also share with us when it will be on the agenda again in a future meeting, we would appreciate that. Thank you for your service to the county, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next is Linda Lovely.
My name is Linda Lovely, and I'm commenting on the supposed regulatory burden that developers face in Oconee County. During recent meetings, Chairman Johnson has hoisted a large white binder and opined about the myriad regulations Oconee County builders already face. In the last meeting, he mentioned 218 pages, leaving the misleading impression that developers must pore over 200-plus pages of burdensome Oconee County-initiated regulations and development standards that are already in existence. However, if I were planning a subdivision on a control-free Oconee parcel, I'd find the regulations unique to Oconee County spelled out on 19 pages, not 218. True, Chapter 6, Buildings and Building Regulations, lists a number of international building codes, but the state dictates builders must follow these in every South Carolina county. These building codes address such things as fire safety, plumbing, and electrical requirements. Builders in Pickens and Anderson County must follow them just like Oconee County. These are not unique Oconee County requirements or development standards that are somehow prohibiting workforce housing or making it more difficult. So let's look at the chapters in the Code of Ordinances that are unique to our county. You can find them in Chapter 26, Roads and Bridges, Chapter 32, Unified Performance Standards, and Chapter 38, Zoning. In Chapter 26, Roads and Bridges, I downloaded the sections that actually detail requirements for construction of public roads, private driveways, and even sidewalks. Total 11 pages. In Chapter 32, Unified Performance Standards, I downloaded the sections in Article 6, Land Development and Subdivision Regulations, that spell out requirements for subdivisions, utilities, lot improvement, septic system setbacks, stormwater, and wastewater. Of course, many of these requirements are actually permitted by outside agencies such as DHEC, not Oconee County. Total 5 pages. In Chapter 38, Zoning, control-free regulations only detail setback distances. The info takes 1 page. However, in case my hypothetical developer is doing a plan development, I included 2 more pages. Total 3 pages. Yes, the entire Code of Ordinances for Oconee County has many pages, but most of the verbiage does not detail actual development standards or restrictions. For example, the zoning chapter mostly provides an overview of zoning districts, methods of changing zoning, and variance appeals, not typical developer concerns. The point is, existing Oconee County development standards are very minimal and are described in a handful of pages. They aren't burdensome, and I'm very glad that all South Carolina counties enforce the international building codes. All reputable builders should understand these codes and consider them part of their professional responsibility. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, Sharon DeRitter.
Chairman, Commissioners, Sharon DeRitter, District 1. I asked the planning director you tasked us not to come in here and bellyache about the 769. I still want to bellyache about that, but we'll leave it at that. We're talking about the standards need to be help, and you guys need some help. I spent 30 hours this past 2 weeks looking through. I have 7 pages. You should have it. It wasn't in the attached, but I'm hoping you guys got the 7 pages. It was emailed directly to you. Okay, it was emailed directly to you. I'm not going to go through all 78 of them. What I did is I went all the way around the country trying to find the best ones that were, green or Betty residential. I did not do commercial, did not do industrial, educational, and all that stuff. Texas, Arizona, Nevada, Colorado, someplace right below Milwaukee. But anyways, then I stayed into South Carolina with the South Carolina Association of Counties. I wanted to talk with the staff attorneys so that I would get it correctly. And he talked with me and he says, try to go to the counties that are in the low country, not because of the salt water, but do the low country. And let me tell you, there are some really good ones down there. Even their websites are really good so I can see things. But just to go through some of these, designation of a scenic highway, I would like to see if we can do that, but I believe that's at the council level, so that's not you. Sidewalks, I didn't see it. A lot of places said 5-foot wide sidewalks. Curbs, they talk about curbs. That's number 5 on the list. Number 10 was a rural theme. That was a rural theme, and some of them had definitions for rural themes. A sliding scale, I thought that was pretty interesting, about an open space. So if you had like 0 to 25 for a residential area, you had to have 5% for open space. That does not include sidewalks and the islands in the middle of roads. And then when it gets up to the bigger developments, they have to do this. There was height of residential dwellings, and that fluctuated from different heights and everything like that. So I know number 19 on this page reflects that we can only go 45 feet in the air. Is that 60? I thought it was 45, because I actually went to your, okay. Then number 17, it talks about private roads. It says, in a lot of places, a lot of the counties, they are taken over on the county, on the roads inside there, because maybe someday the county would get those roads back and we want them developed. So I thought that was a good one. Special exemptions, I don't even know what that is when I look at Lake Overlay District. That's got to change, people, because a lot of places it's a waterway overlay. It's all the waters and rivers, and some of them have depths and widths and heights and what constitutes as a river that needs to be in an overlay map. I thought that was pretty interesting. Some of them had infrastructure analysis. Number 29, they had an eco and wildlife habitats impact report. They had traffic studies and traffic lights, separate report. Oh, God, move fast. I like that some of them even have maybe developing, number 34, developing a Oconee County Architectural Review Board. I thought that was pretty interesting. Maybe we can lower impact fees for tax credits if a developer has 35% or more of their land in a conservation trust area or in a park for the county. What does rural mean? I don't know, do we have anything regarding if something sits halfway into a municipality and half in the county? I don't know, I couldn't find it. Move on. It talked about not having any house on stilts. I don't know if we do that, but that's in some of those low countries. Retention ponds, I didn't see what size, if that was a mandatory for retention ponds. Transfer of development rights in Oconee County, I don't even know what that meant, so I guess I'm gonna leave that up to you guys to come up with that. Real quick, okay, I'm coming. Requirement for living space. A lot of counties, for their, whatever, I don't know if we do, but they have per occupant, like 100 square feet, and then the remaining is like 150 for the first person and 100 for the remaining authorized in a dwelling unit. I thought that was interesting. One of them had a developer's application, had to have these 9 different things. Okay, I'm almost finished. So, place to make and Berkeley County had a great thing. It was funny, Berkeley and I believe one of the other counties down there, they had their chapter 59 was exactly the same. And when I called him, I said, why do you guys have 5959? He says, well, it's because we copied so much of that one that we just used theirs. I said, oh, okay. Thank you very much, you guys. Sorry, I didn't talk real fast, did I? Here. I don't need it.
Okay.
I got mine.
Serena Richardson.
Hello, my name is Serena Brown Richardson, and my family has resided in Oconee for 5 generations. I'm here today to express concern that, as someone previously mentioned, that there is no discussion of the developmental standards today that have been being discussed for years now. And after almost 2 years, where I brought a petition to the board which expressed our county does not want removal of the 50-foot right-of-way. I'm concerned that the subject of the 50-foot right-of-way was brought up in the last 2 meetings. I don't know why we're broaching this subject again when this would relax our developmental standards versus adding restrictions to protect our county, and that's part of what, I think you guys are trying to do. So I think we should add to the existing, not take away. And reviewing the developmental standards, this has been going on for a while now, a couple of years. So I think some of the suggestion of maybe getting some outside help would be very beneficial. And like I know it's been mentioned before about Pickens County and some of the things that they've done. They also have lake property that's involved. But I just kind of wanted to express my concern because I was hoping to you know, that you guys were gonna dive into that priority one today, and we were gonna hear some more about that. But I just want to thank you for your time and your service.
Thank you. Jeff Jones.
Good evening. Thank you, first of all, for your service. Thank you for the opportunity for us to speak out. I know you've had an earful on what seems to be the main topic this evening and the last several meetings. And I'm not going to bellyache, but I thought I might be able to offer perhaps a little different perspective. My wife and I are licensed residential builders here in South Carolina. We actually live in District 1, and we do small custom homes. So I'm not opposed to development. What I am cautious about, and would ask you to be cautious about, are the corporate developers that come in and just clear cut and wipe everything out and and let's face it, their profit margin is based on how many units they can get on a piece of property. So if they can do a quarter acre or less, they will. And what happens is you can see it in Pickens County, well, mainly in Greenville County and even Anderson County, where they have just clear cut, they've cut the mountains and hills down and tiered, and they've got houses just everywhere. I don't know that that brings the natural beauty to Oconee County that people are coming here for. Part of the beauty of Oconee County is the lake and its surrounding areas. And my concern is if we allow unchecked, unbalanced development, we run the risk of becoming Greenville or Columbia or various areas that have unchecked, unbalanced development. So, and I know people have already said this, but the infrastructure, I worry, will run the risk of being stretched so thinly that it will burst. I mean, if you bring in, say, 1,900 proposed homes, then you've got perhaps 5,000, 6,000 additional people, all trying to use the same cell towers, all trying to use the same medical facilities, the hospitals, everything that if you are new to this area, it's not easy to find a physician's office that will take new patients. And if you introduce that many new people, it's really, I think, something that you all need to think about. So again, I appreciate your service. I don't want to sit where you guys and lady are sitting, because I don't know that you get the appreciation and recognition that you deserve. But I would ask you to seriously consider some kind of check and balance on this type of corporate development. So thanks very much.
Thank you. David McMahon.
How y'all folks doing? My name's David McMahon. Apologize, just come off a job. I'm dirty and dusty. But I just wanted to speak just a minute on zoning and the some of the maybe the misinformation that's going on down in the Fairplay area about agricultural and the prospects of losing agricultural properties. I had James put out a little piece of paper here about zoning, and I've been involved with the zoning problem since 2009. Zoning problem, or it's problem solved, whatever you want to, what side of the fence you're on. But I've got a matrix right here in front of you for agricultural district zoning. I've got it highlighted in yellow up at the top. And if you'll follow down, excuse me, this allergies get to me. If you'll follow down to single family subdivisions, in parentheses, more than 10 units. If you'll scroll over, you'll see I've highlighted it X, and you'll see down at the bottom, X means not permitted. Now, I have talked till I'm blue in the face to some of the farmers down in Fairplay that, okay, you don't like zoning, but guess what? This county is zoned already. And I'm preaching to the choir, I know I am, y'all, but I want it to be on record because I hear people scared to death about losing their farmland when they've got a protection right here. They have a protection because in 2009, we were all promised that zoning was going to protect us. The land use plan was going to protect us. And so why don't we put that protection to use today? It's right here in black and white, and I'm hoping that we can reach out to the farming community. I've tried, but you guys have a much louder voice than I do to explain to them that if they go through the proper procedures of zoning, they can do away with this single-family subdivisions. You can only have 10 houses in a subdivision. It says it right there in clear black and white print. Why not use the tools in the toolbox that you have? The zoning is a tool in the toolbox that you have to use. So use it. I've spoken to some farmers that have actually zoned their land down there, agriculture district zoning, and they're happy with it. And guess what? If a child of mine or any of y'all's children or anybody's children in the audience right here can get a wonderful job down at I-85 by bringing in factories, they don't need to be scared to death about industry. I know in 1990, school population in Oconee was 10,000, and guess what the school population is in 2024? 10,000. Our children are leaving here. I would like to see my child keep my 20 or 30 acres, whatever I got spread out in places, and build a house on it and stay here. But a lot of children leave because there's not any good paying jobs. And guess what? The farmer could enjoy his land, and guess what else he could enjoy? If a sewer line happened to go down his road he lives on, no more sticking your hand down in a septic tank digging out root balls. You can be on the sewer and enjoy that too. So I just wanted to make that a point there. There's people out here, some of these people in the Republican Party are rhinos or lying to people and fear mongering, and it's got to stop. The tools are in the toolbox right here to use to help the farmers, and this idea of high density development, I've got a piece of property, 20 acres. I can't even squirrel hunt with my dog anymore because I'm afraid that a bird shot will hit somebody's house. But you know what? The county cannot tell people they can't sell their land. It's just a fact. But you can use these zoning matrices to try to help. And I know that you guys maybe can spread this word a little bit better. We don't need any more laws. My goodness, how many more laws do we need? Thank y'all.
Thank you. Beverly Presley.
Thank you for your service and for your time tonight. I'm Beverly Presley, and I live in District 5 over in the Friendship area on Lake Hartwell. And been involved with some zoning issues before and all, and I just wish, like David said, that we use the zoning as a tool. Try to come in after a developer comes in and wants to do stuff is you're behind the 8 ball and all. So I would like to see it done properly, and I'd also like to see it done evenly and fairly across all of Oconee County, not just cherry pick where we're going to put this type of zoning and this type of zoning. Now, I know we have to have different districts like commercial, farm, and commerce and all, but we have a lot of beautiful county in Oconee County, and I just like to see it stay that way and be fair and equitable about how we do the zoning. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Debbie Brown.
Good evening. I'm Debbie Brown from District 1. I won't take a whole lot of your time. I did come up here about the Kiwi River planning that has been discussed. So I do have a few questions that I'll read, but I hopefully that, every night people come up here and talk, but we never get to ask questions and see what your answers are. So I've got a handout that maybe during discussion that you'll feel free to answer any of these questions. Also, before I got started, I wish I'd printed out, we all looked at the Oconee County Government Strategic Plan and how there's smart government, smart infrastructure, smart growth, quality of life. And if we keep on approving large subdivisions without looking, these are the goals of the county. So please, I wish I'd printed it out. So like cultivate Oconee's county excellent quality of life, seek to expand pedestrian trail opportunities, develop and maintain high quality park system, just different things. I know you all have seen that sheet of paper, the county goals for 2021, right? You're on the, so I guess I'll find it, and maybe if I could get your email address, you can push it out. So AQD was great, and they've pushed out something about the approval process. So I guess, because that was one of my questions, is what are the next steps on the proposed 1,894 homes, the 746.4 acres? Will the county commission or planning commission have the final approval for all the steps that AQD has said to meet? Can the county commission push back on the developer for more green space, amenities, such as clubhouse, pool, multiple tennis, pickleball courts, not just 3, large dog runs, etc., that would keep people inside of this acreage and not driving into town to create more traffic? Please review the attached sheet. So back in 2010, there's Kiwi River planned something with continuing care, even a YMCA, an activity center for people to go and stay there. There was lots and lots of green space. Nothing like what is proposed now, which every inch is developed. It even had a banquet hotel. I'm really not fond of seeing that, but they had a Kiwi River Adventure and Tourism Center, something that would keep people there. So please look at that. Can we push back on the developer? Because they've done the sketch plan, but preliminary plan. We don't need that many houses. I don't want to see a development, but growth is coming. So we need to grow responsibly. So push back for more green space, keep the county green, keep in the goals, the strategic plans of the county. Another question, what does Duke say about the increase of traffic and maintenance along the dikes that this proposal would bring? Who will pay the maintenance? All right, is there future county plans to run sewer and water? Does the county have an estimated cost? Has South Carolina DHEC issued a land disturbance permit for this property? It can be seen off of 130 and T-Bend Trail that big land moving machinery has already started cutting through some roads. So that is something that needs to be stopped, definitely. Is there a conflict of interest if there's a real estate agent on the planning committee, or does it bring some kind of benefit to have a real estate agent on board? An agent could benefit tremendously, possibly from approving subdivisions. Is it ethical to have a real estate agent on the board? Where's the board about getting help from the people who volunteered their help from the March 4th meeting? So those are some questions. I would greatly appreciate it if during the discussion time you would take some time to answer our questions, or maybe if somebody out here has a question, can they raise their hand? Because that's happened before. We come up here and we'd love some of these questions answered. Thank you again for your time. I greatly appreciate it.
Thank you. Tom Markovich.
No. Yes, because you don't have email addresses or anything.
Why don't you give those, if you would, give those to James, and he can give them out to us afterwards. Ms. Brown, thank you.
Good evening, y'all. For the record, I'm Tom Markovich. April 1st is always a good day to be here. Anyway, I want to talk a little bit about the process of subdivision ordinance and what it takes and what it includes and what is actually allowed by state law, Comprehensive Planning Act. Because I've heard a lot of discussions over the last 2 meetings that talk about a lot of things that need to be in subdivision ordinance. But in fact, most of the things that I heard talked about are not allowed to be in the subdivision ordinance. They're zoning tools, pure and simple. The Comprehensive Planning Act has 2 major portions, one that deals with zoning, one that deals with the subdivision of land. When it comes to the subdivision of land, the state is looking specifically at the mechanisms to make sure that the facilities are in place for that subdivision. Meaning how the streets are graded, surfaced, improved, waters, sewers, septic tanks, other utility mains, piping, facilities, all the different facilities that are associated with the physical facilities for that project. That's what the subdivision part of the comprehensive plan is all about. When you read that one section, you will not see tree preservation in there anywhere. You will not see density in there. You will not see, it does talk about lot size, and it talks about open space. I don't have an issue with open space. I think it's great. But at the same time, I think it's the county's responsibility to take care of that open space. Can't be one of these things where we want everybody to have it, but then, if it's gonna be public, it's a public open space, and it has to be. You can't declare it to be public open space and not have it be public. Then the county needs to take care of it, pure and simple. Are they willing to do that? I have no idea. But, now, what does it talk about in terms of zoning? It talks about the use of the buildings, talks about the size, location, height. It talks about the density of development. Those are zoning tools. That's a zoning mechanism. It talks about tree preservation. It talks about landscaping, buffers, lighting, curb cuts. All of those are zoning mechanisms. If you go through what's currently in the subdivision ordinance as it is right now, it deals with everything that's required in terms of the streets and all the different facilities that are required for that subdivision. Subdivision portion was created for nothing. We get this certain idea that we talk about developments and certain times. We think about subdivisions being a residential thing. Subdivision is purely the action of taking property and dividing it up, and it is nothing more than that. And but what the state law says, if you're going to divide up that property, you need to make sure there's proper streets, proper piping, proper everything. But it has nothing to do with tree preservation or anything else. So I hope that we will keep that in mind and keep track of what's zoning. If you want to change the zoning thing, change the zoning thing. But to try and put all this stuff on the subdivision ordinance, it has nothing to do with the subdivision ordinance. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, that ends the public comments for non-agenda items. What about commissioner member comments? Do we have any comments from the group up here? No comments from the group up here?
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
I know some people wonder why development standards weren't put back on the agenda for this week meeting, and I too wonder about it, but I know we're working outside of the PC meetings to gather items of interest from the public, and I hope that we can continue to talk about process and prioritization at our next meeting. I hope it will be back on the meeting for on the agenda for next meeting. I do want to go on record saying I'm for getting consultants to help with the process, and I am interested in some type of tree ordinance to guard against clear cutting. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, I've got a couple of comments here just to get us started. Gary had mentioned it, but also, and I'm not usually one to respond to comments from the public. We want to hear y'all's comments. We want to digest those comments. I was a bit surprised with Advocates for Quality Development being an organization, not necessarily a person, that they were disappointed that we were not covering development standards, when, in fact, the Agricultural Advisory Board, we've been dealing with them over development issues now for a year, and we agreed to meet with them quarterly so we could find out where they were with regard to that. In fact, Fair Play Development Committee is also part of the county. So it's very telling when AQD stands up and says they were disappointed that we don't have development standards, when clearly we are still working on development standards even tonight. It just doesn't happen to be on a 2-mile stretch of Highway 130. We are still working through those processes. But please understand, for anyone new in the crowd, a planning commission is not a thumbs up or thumbs down on developments. That's not what a planning commission does. What we are doing is taking the information that we're receiving, finding out where in the ordinances we can look to plug those things in, so that a developer then is following those new sets of rules. As far as bringing an outside entity in, we've discussed that that's a high possibility. Obviously, that would have to get financial approval through county council. However, for anyone who was paying attention last year, we did the same thing. We talked to a consultant last year, and that consultant said, without coming up with some criteria that people are interested in, simply hiring us to hire us doesn't actually accomplish anything. So that's why we have gone through these meetings, so that we can find out where we might need an outside consultant to come help. But do understand, tonight's meeting is about part of the county, and development standards exist within the entire county, not just in one small section, not just in District 1. They exist throughout. And so we are hearing about development standards tonight, regardless of AQD's comments. But going on to the next part, we do have the Agricultural Advisory, Kim Alexander, here. Last year, we had talked with the Ag Board a couple of times, trying to determine how we could best assist in helping protect the agriculture areas of the county. We talked about some self-zoning components. We talked about some possibility of some signage, things like that. At the end of the day, it was determined that there wasn't much interest in density zoning options at the time. We had a discussion of enhancing the county development standards and southern sewer access. I'm sure with that, more residents might be giving input. So overall, it was determined that it would be beneficial for us to meet with the Ag Board quarterly, just to stay abreast of what's going on there, see if there are any changes with regard to their interest in this development standards process. So since it is coming up past the first quarter, we'd like to welcome them to the floor. Yes.
Thank you for your service, and thank you for asking us as the chairman of the Ag Advisory Board to come back. Of course, let me just remind you, we are in advisory position only. I was told by several councilmen that our job is to keep our ear to the ground and to listen to what the farmers say. With that in mind, last year we took the Ag Advisory Board's meetings to the districts. We just finished up our second meeting with District 5, and we had a number of farmers there. Of course, we heard similar concerns as we've heard about Sewer South and different things. As we stated last time, not much has changed. They feel that if it's a force main, that controls development. If it's a force main, that keeps the development within the 1 mile radius of I-85. At the same time, they said the same things that has been said before. You cannot stop someone from selling their land. There are farmers, and James is very good to bring the zoning information, the tools in the toolbox that they have to protect their land was discussed extensively. An added feature this year that was talked about extensively was the fact that the South Carolina Farm Bureau has just created the South Carolina Agricultural Farmland Trust Act. And so there are many farmers that are looking at two tools in their toolbox, zoning agriculture and talking about putting their land in the conservation easements. Those are the two tools that they are looking to use, and there were several farmers, not only at that meeting, but also 2 weeks after our meeting this past Thursday. The Ag Advisory Board has been working with the Oconee County Food Council, and one of our members actually chairs that committee now, Tessa Moxley, and they've been having morning farmers breakfast. And they brought in a group of different options, from the Chattooga Conservancy to the OCCB, the Oconee County Conservation Bank Board members were there, along with the South Carolina Farm Bureau. And so they all presented. There were a lot of farmers there that were looking at those tools in their toolbox as well. We're hearing the same things. This month, in a week, we will be in District 3. Would love to have everybody come that wants to come. Our meetings that are outside of these council chambers are all town hall style meetings. Everyone has a voice, everyone can speak. We do invite our county councilmen and let them know what is going on, and they are invited as well if they decide to show up in their district. Sometimes they can, sometimes there is a conflict. But we heard the same thing across the county. Same things that you're hearing. Yes, we have worked on development standards. We've asked if they want that. And it's kind of one of those things. You have some that do, some that don't. It really depends on what's happening in their area as to how much they're concerned with it. I think the thing that a lot of us as farmers, I'll speak personally for myself for a moment, and we talk a lot about Highway 11, but if we would just enforce what's in place, stop handing out the building permits in areas that are basically FUD zones, stop handing out, the DHEC they said, when I came and questioned something, I was told, well, DHEC doesn't get involved unless it's over 1/4 of an acre and there's land disturbance. Okay, I get that, but you have erosion, and you have erosion that is going into the North Fork of Little River, which actually contributary flows into Kiowee. So you have an issue. You have an issue from that point on all the way to the lake. And that is what, if the Planning Commission, two things. One, I think we need to come back and review the strategic plan, the ag component in the strategic plan. We talked about that. There were several things on that day. The strategic and comprehensive plan is due for 2025 as a complete review. We're at that point, I believe, because it was half a partial review in 2020. I know COVID interfered with a lot of that. But in 2025, I think if we really want to protect Oconee County, and that is the Planning Commission, and we're advisory to you guys, we really need to look at the components of planning and making sure that the comprehensive plan is where it needs to be. So as we start that process, I would hope at the end of 2024 or toward the middle of 2024, our meetings will conclude this year in District 1 in October. So our future plans are education on farmers' rights and zoning, and trying to do what we can to promote ag in the county. Work with our farm center and the Food Council as much as possible to support their needs to promote agricultural growth in the county. The next meeting, like I said, will be April. That will be District 3. We will be in chambers in May. We will be in District 4 in June, chambers in July, District 2 in August, chambers in September, District 1 in October, and we will finish up in November and December in council chambers. Would love to have any input from the Planning Commission. We'll be glad to look at anything you guys have us. But working toward the comp plan and seeing where we need to move forward from that point is where we are as a committee. I have some committee members that would like to see more funding for certain things to do with agriculture and the farm center. That will have to come from the farm center, but we support their needs as they grow in the county to support agriculture. And I'll take any questions.
You said your D3 meeting's April, do you have a date?
Next Monday, April 8th.
Oh, April 8th.
Yes, ma'am.
And what time?
6 p.m.
And where's that?
The farm center? The farm center. I think it would be great if everyone could attend and see what progress has been made at the farm center. I know that board, the farm board and the fair board have been working very hard. I do think there are some things they need help with, and I think it would be good if maybe you guys could see that, especially since the comp plan is coming up. There will be another time that they will be able to shine, and that will be when the Heritage Fair does take place in September. We are working with educators. I did not bring that up, but we invited them in February to meet with us. They expressed their concerns and their needs. There's a lot there that we can help with to educate, where the food comes from, where it's grown, etc. Economic and development, I have to give Jamie Gilbert credit. That is another thing we're working on, is the spur rail and the 10 acres that the county has on the Beltline with the rail side in Seneca to try to get some grain storage and some things there to help our farmers. We are trying to bring industry to the county.
Heading. Are you still seeing that? Do you see a need that we need to be looking under our development standards at coming back with an Ag 5 component?
That has not been brought up at our meeting. What has been brought up is the conservation easements, simply because as it stands now, if you don't have 50 acres, you can't zone yourself. And as we have stated before, a number of our small farmers especially are under that 50-acre mark. There are a lot of 30-acre farms. Especially in District 1, when you get on up into the northern part of the county, you have a lot of areas that are not, and they're not designed to where they can go in with someone. Some are, some aren't, to where they can be zoned.
We talked about a little bit of that as well, and we've had discussions up here potentially reducing that from 50 acres. I hate to create a spot zone scenario, but if you all would kind of ask what kind of number would be a reasonable number? I mean, there's got to be a cutoff somewhere, but is it 20? Is it 15? Is it, what it might be? Mr. Nix?
I know when we discussed that before, the issue was, it was really a legal issue, because from that threshold of 24.9, if you pick 25 acres, the person that's got 24.99, what's the difference between him or her and the person with 25.0 acres? So then you have to be able to legally defend that. So when you guys discuss that and you come up with a number that's less than 50 acres if desired, make sure you discuss and provide us with some basis for that as far as our ability to defend it.
If it goes forward, it goes to
I
court.
mean,
And
50,
ultimately, that's
50
what
as far as I could tell was fairly arbitrary when we picked it. And so the county, as the county has populated more, it makes sense that the tracts would be smaller.
So let me say this, and this has just happened, and this is an issue, and we'll all deal with it at some point. So you have a lot of family farms. One of the ones behind us was originally 400 and something acres, and then the piece that was right next to us was a family member, and the way it ended up getting divided, it was like 60-something acres. Well, then they sold to a developer at $30,000 an acre, is what it averaged out to be. And so now they are reselling it, and they have split it again, and so now you have 5-acre tracts. And what they're doing is, and this is where development standards come in, they are so smart in how they're arranging this. If I'm speaking out of terms, James, you can get me. But they're so smart, they know how to slide right under your radar. They don't have to meet any standards. They're going to sell it, make their money, and leave. And the issue comes down to, at that point, as their neighbor, when they put a shovel in the ground and they grade, I'm getting their runoff. I'm getting all of the issues. And that's a personal thing. But if it's happening here in my backyard, it's happening across your county. And I think that's what people are upset about more than anything. We can talk about density. We can talk about corporate developers. We can talk about all those things, and I get it. You got that issue sitting at in Epic, across behind Harts Cove there with student housing. That's a disaster. Not built well, corporate, whatever. those are issues. We have those issues, we have these issues. If we could figure out a way to work on the problems we have and be strategic in thinking moving forward with the comp plan, because growth is coming, we just got to figure out how we're going to handle it. Britt had some great ideas. We did a lot of research on some of those standards with some ordinances. Not a bad idea.
Thanks.
Sometimes I don't know if that's not the way to go. But like they said, we don't really need more laws. And the problem is they're smart enough to figure out how to skirt around our laws. That was the whole point in bringing up that family farm. They were smart enough to figure out, we can pay this, we can do this, and we don't have to comply with anything in Oconee County. And that's a problem.
Let me ask James a question real quick, because that's a good point that we need to be considering. Is there a trigger, a number of homes that triggers our stormwater runoff plans or our downstream controls?
So all of those are by the state, and it depends on the subdivision and the total acreage that they are proposing to develop. If you are not developing land, you are just subdividing it, and you are at a certain size, it is not reviewable, and that's by state, that's not by us. So if you're just putting new lines in, you're not developing anything, you're just purely subdividing it. This is not a new subdivision, this is not providing service.
Right.
There is a way to get around.
Okay. That may be something that if you all could work with James on trying to figure out what we might be able to implement to tighten that down a little bit. Did you have something else that you wanted to? Is there anybody else that has anything? I don't have any other questions. Thank you so much for coming in. We hope to see you next quarter, the end of next quarter. All right. Next up, when the agenda first came out 2 weeks ago about the development standards, in March, Terry Jackson down in the Fair Play Development Committee reached out and asked if he could be on the agenda. And while it was not possible at the time, we've got, for someone who may not know, we've got certain time periods that agenda has to set before we actually have a public meeting by state law. And so there was not time to put him on the agenda at the time, but we definitely wanted to make sure, because they've got some interesting things going on down in Fair Play. They've got the southern end sewer that's also coming down there that they've got lots of comments and questions about. But we definitely wanted to make sure that their voice was heard before we started really getting into outlining these other development standards. So at this time is Terry Jackson.
Good evening. So I'm Alicia Walker and this is Terry Jackson. So there's actually going to be the two of us. So on behalf of the Fair Play Development Corporation that is set up, we want to thank you for the opportunity to speak today. So I'm currently the president of the Development Corporation Committee and Terry is one of our members and we're going to speak on their behalf for today. So as you may know, we got set up in 2021. It's a volunteer committee. I'm president, we have a vice president, a treasurer, a secretary, and we meet every other month or so and try to work on things for fair play. So we developed a mission statement, first of all, so just to give you a quick update on where we're at and then talk about the specifics of the master plan. So we developed our mission statement, which is to facilitate the planned development of fair play while maintaining our heritage and embracing the future. So as many have talked about, we knew growth was coming and we wanted to try to work on that. We did have a couple of public meetings in 2021 and into 2022 and developed the master plan for fair play, and that's mostly what we're going to talk about today. Terry's going to walk through that. And we did get established as a 501c status so that we can do certain things in the area. We created a logo that's in line with the Oconee County logos. We're working on some signage coming into the village to update the signage there that we have at the 4 entrances coming in. We held a public meeting late last year and did some community updates for everybody there, from the Blue Ridge Upcountry Fibre, from the Fair Play Oak Youth Centre group that owns the old school and where that fits into the organization. We also had the DOT there to talk about the junction and the work that they're doing within the village as well. So just trying to keep everybody in the community updated on things that are going on. We're working on doing some public designation of the old school wall, and we're trying to come up with a history of fair play and some other kind of community type activities like that in our plan this year. But our primary focus is around the master plan that was developed in that first year that we were together, and Terry's going to walk you through the slides that you have here and what those are.
Hey, good evening. I'm Terry Jackson. I'm in Fair Play as well. I've been on the committee, I think, since the start. So Alicia talked through a lot of what has been going on, and there's a lot going on. 501c3, we've been doing a lot. But this is my personal perspective. We're just not really moving the needle substantially. We're busy. We've got the logo. We're setting the groundwork pretty well. We've got involvement, we've got community relations, but we're just not moving the needle a lot. You'll see, I'll refer in a minute, I'm an old gearhead guy. We're not getting off top dead center. So we're here to just figure out how to do that. So we wanted to bring you guys up to date and see what we do next. So we're going to re-review the latest plan. I'll show you that in a minute. At the public meeting, Ms. Brock was there, and I talked to her for a few minutes. I said the same thing. I said, what do we need to do? We need planning commission help. We need planning department help. How do we get that, whatever? She goes, well, we're not really necessarily going to come to you. Come to me with your list. So we're going to go. We're going to have a meeting scheduled to see her. We'll talk about several things you're going to see on this slide, but we're going to go talk to her. But we wanted to make sure you guys are aware of what we're doing as well, because we're trying to work together on this. We're trying to figure out where to go as well. Ms. Brock said that. We're going to go see her. Along the way, we thought we'd come see you guys as well. So that's coming up soon, not scheduled, but we got to get that on the schedule in the next couple of weeks. And then request any feedback, comments from you guys as well from what you see or hear today. Before I turn the slide, I do want to thank Gary Gullen, who I know is on this commission, and I know he's phoned in. We do want to make thanks to him. He has been active in our meetings. Occasionally, when he can't make it, he'll call me, just say, hey, what's happening? What happened? Because he couldn't meet those. So we appreciate that. And Councilman Hart as well, who has been at a lot of our meetings, just taking a lot of questions, giving some input there. So I want to make sure they get recognized from all you guys. Okay, next slide, please. So the picture, in case you guys haven't been down at Fair Play, that's not what it looks like today. So, that's part of why we're here. How can we get something else, all right? What I highlighted there is it says that's the master plan from December, or the strategic plan of December 2021. So, that's 3 years ago. So that's, again, where are we going? So that's what we want to talk about. Next slide, please. So a couple of things on this slide that's worth noting. It's already recognized in this study. By the way, the council, or the county, paid for that study. We appreciate that. That was done. That was founded by, so there was some interest, at least at the time, recognizing what's going on there, what can be done. So the county paid for that. So some of the things that came out of that, there's an existing retail leakage. People know people are going to other areas. There is opportunity for growth down there. We all know that. Of course, we heard about the sewer again tonight, but there's a lot of stuff going on. There's the industrial park, a couple of industrial parks. So there's a lot going on down in that area that has actually increased, or the potential is to increase pretty significantly over the next few years. So we need to stay ahead of that. Fair Play offers unique natural and historic resources also. That's the real, of the different areas in Oconee County, that's one of the little town areas, if you will, that could leverage Lake Hartwell. So we need to figure out how to do that. That's a huge opportunity. You got a couple of huge state parks down there in that area that could then leverage that somehow and get that into Fair Play to help that area grow, if that's the plan. Okay, next slide, please. So anyway, this is a page out of the strategic plan as well. It talks about a couple of things. I'm not going to go through all this, but basically just to cut to like my arrow, there was a phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, whatnot. So we've been talking about some of the things on phase 1. We've been talking about some of those, but the one I want to highlight is actually why we're here today. To be honest with you, it had been so long since the strategic plan had been done, I forgot that was here until I was putting together the slides. But here we are talking about initiate discussions with Oconee County to apply for a grant for the former elementary school, and I'll talk about that more. But the key is initiate discussions with the county. So that's what we're trying to, maybe we should have done before, maybe it was done and revisit, but that's where we're here. Okay, next slide, please. Phase 2, longer term, which is kind of really where we are now. Create an event lawn by removal of the former elementary school. I'll show you a picture that really gets to what we're talking about there. Coordinate with Fair Play Fire Department in the county to construct a new fire department, because that's kind of key to event lawn and all that in that whole area. Coordinate with the Oconee County Recreation on a plan to connect the village district to the lake. Again, lots of opportunities there. We can figure out a way to make that happen. Okay, if you can just, yeah, it's perfect. So there's kind of the picture that came out of the strategic plan. So that is right there, that's Yoder's, so everybody knows. So you're coming in from this way, from Seneca typically, and then there's from the interstate's right down here, you can't see it. So basically, that's Yoder's. This is all what would presumably change and is part of the plan, that is what's put together. That is what the plan was. The county said, put something together, see what it is. That's it. This is how we're trying to see, do we want to go this way? How do we make that happen? So there's a couple of things that are key to that that we mentioned. One is the existing fire department is right about here, and it would move into, like, I think this building. It's not a trivial task, and there's a little bit of work involved in making that happen. But is that part of our plan? And how do we get going on that? Because there's some other things in that area now. The existing school, that's Fair Oaks School, by the way, is right about here. And so there's that event lawn and all that. That's key, smack dab right in the middle. Fair Oaks School's still there. I'm not saying a complaint, just a matter of fact, again, we got to figure out Fair Oaks School's still there. And it's a big environmental issue to get rid of, number one. Number two, are we then going to be allowed to do that down there? So how do we together make that happen? So this is the plan we're talking about. We're trying to figure out, are we going to execute this? How are we going to go forward to make that happen? Okay, next slide, please. Just a few images of downtown, again, where it could be an older building redone, the existing roads and all, and then there's the sidewalk and all, so that's all part of it. So why are we here? And this is my next to the last slide, I think. So this is what probably the one page we'll sit down with when we talk to Ms. Brock, and of course we're sharing with you guys. We need an answer. Is the county in favor of this plan? Do they really believe and support the plan that the consultant put together? Are we there? Because I think we got it, and it's just kind of been down with us. We need help from the county. So we need help to get rid of that Fair Oak school building. And why I say help, you know, I mean, there's going to be contracts that have to be written, the EPA studies need to be done, there's grants. There are known EPA issues down there. There's oil tanks down in the ground, in case you guys didn't know that. There's a big issue with removing those. There's asbestos, so it's not just a knockdown. So it's going to take county help to make that happen. It's honestly above a lot of our pay grades, and we hope we understand what's going on. So we're going to need some help because we really can't move forward on anything. That's the start of where the little Fair Play community area would be. So we need help with all those things. I've mentioned a bunch of those things right here. We need to make sure, we may need pressure to help arbitrate between Fair Oaks and us. Fair Oaks may want to keep that property. Not a problem. Then if, you know, we need some arbitration on it, maybe that's fine. So I'm not taking a side here. I don't want anybody to think I am and say we want to get rid of Fair Oaks School. That is not the point. The point is, though, that's what the plan says now. And so we may need some help to help us mediate and get that to happen. And if that's not where it's going to be, okay, then let's develop a new plan. That's all. We just need to get past that point. At some point, we're going to have to talk about, I'm not a planner, sorry. But at some point, I know we're going to have to talk about some sort of economic incentives or something to get businesses to just show up. Once we get doing some things, I don't think you can just say, do me a favor and put a restaurant and a microbrewery down there. So I don't know. We'll have to figure that out. That's getting down the road. But anyway, how have other towns done it in this area? You know, South Seneca doing some things like that. So we need to figure that out. We need a plan with funding to get rid of some of these other buildings. And these are just my thoughts. Again, I'm not a planner. These are just my thoughts on what it's going to take. We just need to start partnering together with. We got the road changes going on down there. We got the sewer. What else is going to be talking about infrastructure to make that happen? Other people were talking about some of the subdivisions, some of the cell towers and all that. Is that sufficient infrastructure? So we know we're going to have to address infrastructure. So we need to talk about, and if not these items as we're talking, what do you guys suggest back? I mean, because again, we're here to ask for help too, not just say, do it, and how can we help together? So we need some feedback back. So bottom line, there's my term again, top dead center. How do we get this off top dead center? Or is there really a desire to move forward with Fair Play, the future plans as they are, or redo them? It's just time to talk about that. So we are going to work with Ms. Brock, presumably, depending on what she says when we meet. How do we meet with you guys? So it's really a question. So the purpose of tonight, sharing this information with you and asking you guys, how do you want us to work with you guys going forward? And or Mr. Coley, how do you want us to work with Ms. Brock? Leave it over there, leave you guys out of it. We're open to suggestions, and that's basically why we're here, to have the discussion with both you and Ms. Brock. And then we can come up every couple of months, whatever you guys recommend. Also, if we get something going, that we have something to talk about. And I think that's my pretty much last slide. Yeah, this is pretty much, we talked about those already. So,
Your slide that showed the master plan in green, how many acres is that? You know?
That I don't know.
I have no clue. That's a pretty good question. I don't know. I mean, but spatially, I mean, this is here now, so where, I don't have an answer. I'm gonna guess 75-ish acres, but I don't have a good answer on it.
75 acres.
That's totally a guess.
Follow-up to that, is this still at a committee level discussion, or is there real buy-in in the community for this development plan?
Well, we did hold 2 public meetings of this, and we got community input to it, so everybody had that. And then it was signed off on by the council, I believe, and it's on their website as this is the master plan for Fairplay at the moment. So, I mean, we've gotten a lot of feedback that we could do it a community center, we could do it a new fire department, but Fair Oak Youth Center owns a lot of that land right now, so that's what Terry was talking about, is like, once they get the school knocked, if they want to keep it and do something else with it, then where do we go to do this, which was what was put in the plan.
I mean, I know at some of the public meetings, just heard in discussions, not big stuff, but it's, boy, it'd be nice to keep fair play like it is, obviously.
Yeah.
But that's gonna be a challenge, I think. And again, I'm not pro or con, I'm just recognizing what's going on, right? I mean, Greenville wasn't the way it is today. I'm not saying that's a good model, but I'm just saying it is coming. And several people have said the other thing. So I got no problem leaving it the way it is too, and quite candidly with you guys, but it's not gonna happen. So is that the plan it's gonna be, or something else? And how can we work together to make it happen? So, but to answer your question, I haven't seen a lot of negative. I'm not a big social media person. I haven't seen a lot. Alicia's better than that. But some of the comments were, boy, it'd be nice to keep fair play as it is, but one of the reasons I've volunteered some of my time is I just don't see that happening. So how can we make it get to what people want?
Mr. Nix?
So I'd like to thank Larry Wilkerson for, he's I think the Fair Play Fire Chief for riding me around, and we looked at a lot of stuff, and I agree that the old school is the centerpiece, and it's the biggest problem.
Yeah.
So my question to y'all is, have y'all received an estimate of what it would take to demo the school and remove the submerged diesel fuel oil tanks, which I understand are leaking at this point?
They are. Fair Oak Youth Center has that. They have the information on that.
Was there not ARPA money that was slated to go to this at one point to demo this school?
That I'm not sure.
I haven't heard of any money. I mean, otherwise I think they'd be working on it. I haven't heard of any money that has gotten to that point yet.
Fair Oak Youth Center have done the phase 1 and phase 2 environmental assessments of that, and they've worked with Ms. Amanda Brock on that as well, and I believe they've gotten some funding to pay for that, so they've at least done the phase 1, so they've identified where the tanks are, where the asbestos is, all that type of thing, and now they're in the process of doing the phase 2, which would be, okay, what's it gonna take to pull it down, et cetera, so they should have a number on that at some point soon to say what it is to come down. I don't know what it is now.
No.
That's
I mean, we can take an assignment, maybe try to get that number and send it
We're
up
trying to
to
stay
you.
in contact with them to get feedback from them on what they're doing or what they think, yeah.
My feeling is if you can't orchestrate that piece of it, the rest of it's out the window.
Yeah.
I agree 100%. That's why we're here. So we need to figure out how to do that, or figure out what the next drawing is. Or we leave it as it is and see what happens. So I agree with you 100%.
Well, nothing's gonna happen
Until
if
the
you leave it
school
like it
arrives.
is. I mean, I agree. If you can't do the school piece, if you can't get the school removed and that area recovered,
Yeah.
you're just gonna have to build around it somehow. And it's an eyesore, and it's
dangerous.
actually the centerpiece. I mean,
Yeah.
And it's actually quite dangerous at the moment because of the asbestos and a lot of things that are there, so.
And I appreciate you acknowledging that.
Mr. Chair. Yes, Gary.
Thank you for letting me get in on this a little bit. I may end up saying something that's not exactly correct, so if someone can correct me if I'm wrong, please do. But I think Oconee County School District deeded the school building over to Fair Oak with knowing that they didn't have the kind of resources to raise the building. And anybody would know that eventually that was going to have to happen. So I think it's time for Oconee County to step up and take the responsibility for doing the right thing for the community and take financial responsibility to take the building down.
There was some discussion of allotting a portion of the school district budget to address it, to remediate that property.
Well, I'm including the school district in as part of Oconee County, so the larger Oconee County needs to step up and raise the building.
I think an issue or related to that, though, from the discussion I recall, so then I think part of that was they wanted the ownership of that to go back to the county then, and I think Fair Oaks is a little bit opposed to that, not speaking for them. Again, all I'm saying is that's where we need some help, maybe at the county level, to help us mediate what that will be. We do not have an adversarial relationship with those guys. I want to make sure you understand that.
I think Amanda Brock is going to be your first good step, especially with regards to that.
Yep.
With regard to the acreage, from a planning standpoint, we could obviously help with some sort of zoning overlay or something like that if it comes down to that. But we would want to hear that there's a real buy-in for that.
Fair Play does have a zoning overlay itself. It's not, I know it's not near as broad as that. I can tell you that for a matter of fact. But it's
very
fairly
small.
significantly small.
So here's the overlay.
Oh, there you go.
See Yoder's right here.
Yep.
Here's the old school.
Yep.
And if we look kind of back and forth, the old school's basically right in here. They're showing the road gray line on the PowerPoint on this. So this
Yeah.
is, the road will fool you if you're looking at just the roads. But it goes a little bit past the center of the village up into these parts.
See the green line, that's where the overlay goes.
All this back down around this.
It's kind of like a shamrock shape, right, or something that was referenced
Yeah, it's
as,
all over.
yeah.
The majority of this plan is already in the overlay.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't need to jump in.
Mr. Nix?
Help me with understanding Fair Play as far as administratively how it's laid out compared to, say, Walhalla or Seneca or Westminster. So Walhalla, Seneca, Westminster are all incorporated.
We are not
And
incorporated.
the county does not have any jurisdiction over their area, incorporated areas. Not completely anyway. They drive their own ordinances. Y'all don't have that, is that my understanding?
Fair Play is not incorporated at all, so that's why we got set up as.
Where is?
Yeah, we're the volunteer, it's a community development corporation, that's why we got set up as a 501c, but we are not incorporated.
Okay. Sorry for the
Mr.
dumb
Chair,
question.
just one other thing. Of course, both Terry and, I'm sorry, is it, Lisa?
Alicia, yeah.
Alicia?
Alicia, okay, I'm sorry. They're representing the rest of the people that have been meeting on a regular basis. Gone to, the formality of creating a 501c3 and having the Fair Play Development Corporation. They're in need of funds. They're in need of additional members. But I want to say that this is definitely a model for the rest of the county, those places that are not incorporated, but small communities. They need to be doing the same thing that these folks are doing. As I said, we were able to get successfully a master plan developed through funds, through the county. we need more funds. And when I'm talking about taking the school building down, I'm talking about the county or the school district getting grants to do that. It's not gonna necessarily come out of the budget, the yearly annual budget, but they have the expertise to give that kind of support. And I just wanted to say thanks to all the members. They couldn't all come tonight, but all the members have just been incredible about standing up, voicing their concerns, and, you know, legitimately providing leadership for their community. I'm so proud of them.
Absolutely. Mr. Nix?
Another avenue that I would suggest is talk to the state delegation. I mean, we just had, how many millions of dollars did they acquire for Seneca? For a art center?
Right.
And we can't even get a hazardous waste area in the middle of Fair Play mitigated. So I think that's a good avenue for you guys to pursue as well, if you haven't already.
No, we have not, so that's a great suggestion, thanks.
Appreciate that. And picking up on one more thing that Mr. Garland said, yeah, there's a bunch of us that are down here working on it and all that, and we've done what we can, but I want to go back to the early part. This study was funded by the county, so at one point, the county had a vision or a thought as to what could or was questioning what could happen there. We're just trying to help execute what the county initiated on their own, and we appreciate. And so now we're just trying to, okay, what do you want us to do next? So, and how can we make that happen? So county started that to its credit.
Well, I do think Amanda Brock's going to be your great next step. I appreciate you coming up. Sorry we couldn't get you on the night that we started development standard stuff, but we definitely wanted to include you all as we are working through this big undertaking.
Appreciate the opportunity.
We'll be all right these days.
Any other questions? Thank you. Last agenda item here. James, you want to take over regarding the Kiwi Plantation subdivision rezoning?
So in your packet, you've got the petitions, and the very last page is this plat map that they provided. They've got signatures and the small area rezoning. They are over that 50-acre threshold we were talking about just a while ago. You'll see the highlighted parcels are the ones that have opted in. They are requesting to go from control-free into lake residential. I've got that pulled up here on the parcel map. So here's the existing subdivision, Kiwi Plantation. And happy to answer any questions. They do need a recommendation from you to council within the next 60 days. And that would be to proceed, not to, but we do have to make a recommendation to council. I'm happy to answer any questions you guys have specifically.
I do have an initial question, and then I'll pass it to you, is what we see existing on GIS here and what we see on a plat map here, are these two the same, or are there additional lots on the plat map itself?
So this is the plat that was recorded when the subdivision was made. Let me go back to that for you guys. So this parcel was not included, and then these are the two opt-outs, here and here in red.
But all the other lots are cut according to what we saw in the GIS screen there?
It's pretty close, yeah.
Okay. So really, we have an existing subdivision that has a couple of opt-outs, and the subdivision wants to move to lake residential.
Correct.
What was your question, Mr. Haney?
Actually, you answered
it. Can we go ahead and make a motion now? You said it had to be done within the next 60 days. Is there
That
any
is
reason?
the time limit statutorily, yes. So you can do it tonight, you can wait, you can think about it, you can move forward.
Is there anybody other than the opt-outs that don't want to be a part of this? All these people that are highlighted and that signed are wanting to be taken from control-free to lake residential?
Correct. I will also point out that this entire subdivision is also already in the lake overlay. So it is already restricted by the overlay, regardless of whether or not it is zoned into the lake residential or control.
And are we missing any, so we're not missing any signatures other than the 2 opt-outs?
Correct. And the recommendation would be for only the ones that are requesting voting to go in, unless you wanted to change that, but it would be under the type B.
Can you say that again? I'm sorry. So the ones that are opting out would not be included?
So they
They're not,
would
they're
remain
not
in
being
control for it.
included in it? Okay.
Anyone have any other questions? Because I'll make a motion that we approve this as it's,
Make a recommendation.
make a recommendation to council that it is, that we would approve this.
Second.
Mr. Gollins seconds. Is there additional discussion on it?
I'm just curious about the ones that opt out. That puts them in a unique, almost spot zone.
So it leaves them in control free, yes. They would, and council, so council does have a third method of zoning that I'm not familiar with them ever using, which is council initiated zoning. So they could, if they chose to, push them in. Otherwise, the recommendation would be for them to remain out of Lake residential staying in control. That's certainly a discussion that they can have, or you can have as well, on whether or not to move from the method B to the method 3 or C.
I do have a question. Thinking about that. So once we zone these people, let's say we do hypothetically zone this group into Lake residential, do they now have the power and the regulation behind them to force these other people in?
Maybe not. So the only people that can initiate zoning at the county level are county council.
Okay.
And you'll see more so the agricultural zoning that's been done in the past, where you'll have the tiny squares that are left out of larger green agricultural areas, that were people that chose not to, but they were contiguous without their need.
So my thought is that we've been talking to the ag groups of saying you can protect yourself by doing a self-zoning, and here's an opportunity, it's not ag, but here's an opportunity for a group to self-zone into Lake residential. I see no reason to prohibit them from doing so.
If you don't mind, I'll show you kind of some of the ag zoning, just real quick. It kind of looks, you can see there's some substantial parcels that are just kind of holes in here. And this would be just kind of an example of folks that didn't opt into zoning when it was available to them at that time, certainly.
All right, so all those in favor of the motion to send this recommendation up to council as it's provided here, signify by saying aye. Aye.
That's unanimous.
Unanimous? All right, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Well, motion.
All right.